So I have one of my lovely previous clients, Alex, with me today. Thank you for being here. I want to first ask, how did you find me and what prompted you to reach out to explore support together?
So I actually found you through a Google search. I was searching just someone that I can work with to specifically for the emotional and binge eating aspect, and your website came up, and what immediately attracted me to your website was that your story. I read about your story on the website, how you yourself had been through binge eating and emotional eating, and I just felt that you would understand where I was at with things more than any other healthcare professional that I had previously worked with before. And I reached out to you because I had basically just reached a point in my life where if things weren't going to change now, I didn't really see how I was going to be able to move forward in my life in a positive way and reach the goals that I had for myself. So I knew I had to reach out and gain help. And I think a big part of that was just accepting that I needed help.
Yeah, I think that's such a huge thing to just be honest with ourselves, right? And that it's actually not a bad thing to receive it. So when we first started working together, what really helped you start to gain traction with starting to overcome the binge eating?
Okay, it was the 7 steps. That was so helpful for me because it made me understand what was going on in the moment where I would have a craving or just really want to reach for some sort of food as a comfort. So it made clear to me what my triggers are, what stressors I had going on in my life. And it really opened my eyes just to not what was going on just in the moment, but just the amount of stressors I had in my life in general and how often I was really feeling the need to basically emotionally eat and binge eat. And that really helped me to gain control over it overall.
And as you started to catch your triggers, did you ever have this aha moment where you're like, oh my gosh, I think I can actually break free of this?
Yeah, it happened pretty early on when I was using the 7 steps. I think just having a process and a sheet of paper that I could refer to and just ask myself these questions, I was easily able to come up with other things that I could do instead of emotionally eat. And that was just key for me because up to that point, one, I didn't have the awareness of what was really going on. And 2, I didn't have any other ways of dealing with, being in a stressful situation or something like that outside of food. So just the 7 steps were just so, right away, it just immediately clicked for me. And I think it was partially because I was ready to really work with you. But that was just key, 100%.
Yeah, I'm so glad that tool is so helpful. The 7 steps is a game changer when it comes to us catching and shifting those habits. So as we started to have you overcome the binge eating, of course, we did some great work with your hormones and digestion. So why don't you share a bit about what state your digestion was in when we first started? We'll start there.
It was not a great state at all. I was experiencing bloating all the time, and just lots of body inflammation. And just with the way I was eating, just my irregular eating habits, it really made it hard to digest most foods I found. And it was just all over the place. Overall, yeah.
And I feel like I remember when we first connected, you were put on an elimination diet, or someone had suggested for you to go on an elimination diet. So why don't you share about why it felt empowering that we actually didn't end up doing that?
Well, yeah, so I forgot about that. Before working with you, I was put on an elimination diet, which is restrictive. And that was not what I needed at all. It really was a huge trigger for me for emotionally eating. So that just made things worse and kept the cycle going forwards. But what was helpful when we started working together was that there was no restrictions, like no restrictions put on anything. It was just, if I felt like I wanted to eat something, was it going to be good for me? Or even if it was a treat, like, you know, will I feel okay having like a small treat or something like that? And is it for a positive reason or a negative reason? And that actually made me feel like I had more control than actually restricting, because it wasn't triggering for me in that way.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's just such a great learning for all of us. Those elimination diets can be really triggering if we're struggling with emotional eating or binge eating. Now, there was also stuff going on with your hormones when we had first connected as well. And I know one of your, concerns was, oh my gosh, I got put on this elimination diet to lower my inflammation because of certain hormone things going on. And it's almost just like, if I don't do this, are the other things ever going to change? So why don't you share a bit about, right, the improvement with your hormones and your gut as we went along, and like you said, no restriction?
Yeah, so I had been diagnosed with PCOS, and that was one reason, again, why I was on the elimination diet, to reduce the inflammation as one of the kind of treatment protocols for it. And I had done a lot of hormone testing, which again, to me in the end was just super triggering. I got put on a restrictive diet and just had this testing done, and I felt like my experience was just in numbers. And that was just super not helpful, and I didn't really understand what was going on there. And it was actually interesting because when we started working together and we didn't have restrictions, I was just paying attention to what I was eating and how I was feeling on a regular basis, and having different tools to go to instead of emotionally eating. The PCOS just started to go away. Like my cycle started becoming more regular. And I think by the time we did some hormone testing, which was pretty much close to the end of our time together, it was just so much better. And I didn't really, we did some supplements, but there was nothing, we didn't focus on PCOS as a diagnosis. It was about the experience and how I was feeling. And that was huge.
Yeah. And it really teaches us the body is always trying to heal. So if we get these so to me, the emotional eating was a massive amplifier of the diagnosis.
Yeah.
And healing and really learning how to love yourself and step into your worth. Diagnoses don't have to stick, right? And so I'm so glad that shifted for you. How did it feel to experience that and not feel like you'd have to be kind of like a slave to a certain diet or a certain protocol for a really long time?
It felt like too good to be true at first, because for so long I had struggled, and just receiving different diagnoses was so triggering for me. And to suddenly, work with you and work on not even, focusing on certain lab tests or lab results, but just, again, like my experience and really developing more like self-love and greater compassion for myself. That was the key. It did not have as much to do with, being on a ton of supplements or, monitoring everything to a T. That was not key for me. And so it was really an incredible experience, and it made me feel more confident in my own abilities to have control over my health, my body, and, moving forwards, what I wanted that to look like.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. So let's talk a little bit about the self-love worthiness part of the journey. Where did you kind of start with your insecurities with body and yourself, and how did that evolve to healing for you?
Well, something that was really helpful with our time together was the awareness that, or just learning about how much society conditions you from like a young age to, be a certain weight or a certain body type, or to look a certain way. And I never realized how much that was, really getting into my head and, being a trigger for me with the emotional and binge eating. And that had just kept my self-worth very low. for so long, and I'm a huge people pleaser. So that, with the low self-worth and just feeling like I need to keep pleasing everyone, I didn't have a connection with myself. It was not the focus at that point. But then as we were working together, like one of the first things we did was, help me to establish a better relationship with myself and have me spend time with myself, which was so weird at the start. That was uncomfortable to just be alone with myself, because that alone was a trigger for me. And now where I'm at is I love having alone time. I love myself so much, and I'm so proud of like where I've come and what I've been through. And I'm so confident. I feel like I can do anything I put my mind to. And that is a complete opposite of from where I started.
Yeah, incredible. I feel your power. Your energy shifted so much as we went through this process together. And is there any other like surprises or things you weren't expecting to shift, learn, heal as we went through the time together?
It's just everything as a whole, just the amount of depth that I gained from the experience I was surprised by that. Just the deepness in my relationship with myself was shocking, because up to that point I didn't realize that, having a healthy relationship with who you spirituality and what you see yourself being, I didn't realize that had so much to do with, that was so connected with your physical body. And so just by, healing through the emotional eating and the binge eating and not, and just gaining more self-love, it really opened my eyes to just so much more, and, in my life. And I wasn't really expecting that. I didn't think I'd come out and be like, oh, I feel like I can do anything I want now. And the people you attract, like afterwards, just because your energy levels shift. Another surprising thing was just, the type of people you attract into your life. Like there's so many more amazing people I have in my life, and lots of people I've more so let go. And that's been really helpful for my healing.
Yeah, that's amazing. I'm so glad for you. So how has doing this healing work changed your life or impacted your life?
Well, it's, to start, it's given me this good foundation of tools and self-care and awareness that I can use every day. Because, I'll still get cravings, I'll still have stressful situations, but because I know myself better, and I I have the 7 steps just like in my head as a habit now, I feel that I can handle stressful situations and moments of uncertainty with greater confidence and clarity. So, I don't think I would never ever get back to those same habits ever again. And the way I look at food today is so different as well. Like I have such a better, healthier relationship with food, and I use it to nourish my body. And just, that the whole mentality of just giving yourself compassion and patience and love really just, I don't know, where was I going with that? It leads into other areas of your life, like your exercise routines and that sort of thing as well, and like your social life. So I can't remember the question now, but
just how has it impacted your life?
yeah, that's exactly it.
Yeah, totally. You answered it beautifully.
Yeah.
Yeah. And why would you suggest reaching out for support? How is that pivotal in helping you heal?
Because you need someone like yourself, like you, Amber, who understands the experience and understands that you need to build yourself up personally before you can even start working on the other aspects, like the emotional eating and the binge eating, because they go hand in hand. I think anyone who is at a point in their life where they're at a crossroads, they can either continue on with their current habits and not have that work out very well, or they realize that they're worth more, like they know that deep down, I think it's always helpful to reach out to you and it's a simple consult, like we just had a 15-minute consult and we had an immediate connection and I immediately felt safe to move forward with you. But I think that's the first step, and it's very simple. Anyone who is struggling with self-worth or knows that they can do more with their life and they feel like they're being restricted by their current habits and all that, it's worth reaching out for sure.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. Is there anything else you want to share?
I don't think so. This was definitely one of the most important things that has happened in my life was working with you. And I'm so proud of myself for making that first step. And I'll forever cherish those moments we've had together. So thank you, Amber.
Oh, my pleasure. And likewise. And I'm so proud of you. And I'm so happy to hear that things are going amazing. So thank you so much for joining me today.
Of course.